bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. So, Adrian has joined also. Okay. Sorry, it just takes a few minutes to arrange things with the Zoom account. So today we're going to talk about a sutta that it's very appropriate for lay people. It's appropriate for everybody. I've been contemplating this particular sutta for myself. It's like this teaching that the Lord Buddha gave to his cousin Mahānāma, and it's titled Mahānāma Sutta because it was given to him, but it's about reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and also qualities that virtuous or wholesome qualities that we possess to bring up joy and to help us on the spiritual path. So it's a very beautiful sutta. And when I started looking at it carefully, I realized it's talking about some qualities that are essential for awakening. So I'm going to, at a certain point, we're going to kind of focus on those qualities, along with recollecting on the qualities of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and our own wholesome behaviors. So I'm going to now go to screen share. And you should be able to see it now. Yes, this is with Mahānāma. There's actually two, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get to the second one. I might touch on the second one very briefly, because it's basically the same. It just has a little bit of a variation to it. Let's see if I can change the location of, there it goes. There we go. So, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, at one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Sakyans near Kapilavatthu in the banyan tree monastery. At that time, several mendicants were making a robe for the Buddha, thinking that when the robe was finished and the 3 months of the rain's residence had passed, the Buddha would set out wandering. So some people may be familiar with this as at the end of the rain's retreat, the end of the Vasa, there's a katina. And apparently the monks were given some cloth and they were busily sewing the robe ahead of time for the Lord Buddha. And then Mahānāma the Sakyan heard about this. He went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, "Sir, I have heard that several mendicants are making a robe for the Buddha, thinking that when the robe was finished and the 3 months of the rain's residence had passed, the Buddha would set out wandering." So who knows how long the Buddha had been in that area, and then Sakya, the Mahānāma, heard that the Buddha would be departing at some point soon. So he kind of got a sense of urgency and what came to see the Buddha. And then he says, now we spend our life various ways. Which of these should we practice? So this is I think Bhante Sujato was getting kind of interpretive. He's saying how should we live is see, this is Viharena, dwelling, residence. We live in various ways. And vihara can be like a Brahma vihara, can be a meditative practice. It can be how we conduct ourselves, how we live. How should we practice? See, I have the hard copy here. I have Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. I love to compare. This is important. I think if you're studying the suttas, you might look at the Pali, but also to look at the actual translations, complete translations by translators that you feel confident in. So I love to go back and forth because it helps my understanding, and I can start. Sometimes I'll argue with it the way someone translates in my mind, but then I start to understand why they've done it that way. So Bhante Bodhi here says the translation of Mahānāma's question is, Bhante, with all our various engagements, how should we dwell? So that might make sense too. He's a lay follower. And so he's asking her, as a, we're busy lives. I think Ajahn Tanisaro says, in our busy lives, how should we live? So he's asking, how should we conduct ourselves? How should we live? And then the Lord Buddha says, good, Mahānāma. It is appropriate that gentlemen such as you come to ask. We spend our lives in various ways. Which of these should we practice? Or how should we practice? I think maybe would make more sense. So here, I want you to really pay attention to each of these elements. And then I have a question for you. Okay. The faithful succeed, not the faithless. So that's sadhu. The energetic succeed, not the lazy. And that's arada viryo. The mindful succeed, not the unmindful. Those with immersion succeed, not those without immersion. The wise succeed, not the witless. See, I think Bhante Bodhi translates it pretty much the same, and he has them enumerated. So how many are these? Was my first question. And what does this make you think of? What qualities is the Buddha talking about? Okay. So a person with faith succeeds, not one without faith. An energetic person succeeds, not one who is lazy. One with mindfulness established, succeeds, not one who is muddle-minded. One who is concentrated succeeds, not one who is unconcentrated. One who is wise succeeds, not one who is unwise. So can anybody tell me what these are? These qualities? How many qualities? I almost said. Yes, Adrian, please.
They would be the five powers.
Yes,
Is that
so
right?
actually,
Yeah.
yes. John, yes. The five spiritual faculties are the five powers, yes. So I'm going to switch screens here. Can you see that? It's a new screen that popped up for you. So if you know the Pali, there's a sada is usually translated as faith, or it could be trust or confidence. And then we have virya here, which is energy. I think Ajahn Nisero translates it as persistence. And then there's sati. There's a sati there for mindfulness. And samahito for that's the element of concentration. And panyawa. So the person who possesses this is actually what they're talking about. Here I have sada is the faithful, confident, believing, devoted, trusting. And this is not gullibility. It's not being gullible. And rada, virio, energetic, with energy aroused, applying energy, making an effort. So this is a possessing these qualities. And this one, upatita sati, is with presence of mind, attending mindfully, and that says literally standing near mindfully. So upatita is about the standing close by. And upasika is of someone who sits close by. So they come and they sit and they hear, but this is like more the idea of attending to things in your life. So, and then the samahito, composed, centered, settled, collected. And I think they talk about when you hear like immersion and concentration, you're thinking that this is that you'd be sitting on the cushion and you're going into jhana, or at least some deep state of samadhi, maybe not fully into jhana, but when you just think of these qualities, possessing these qualities in your daily life, I think this is important to consider. This is going to support what you do on later on the cushion, how your meditation goes. But if you're, developing these qualities and then being composed, centered, settled, collected, and then wise, intelligent, insightful, percipient. This wise, intelligent, discerning, insightful, percipient. So with the spiritual faculties, and then this is each one of them, this is accomplished in there, you be accomplished or successful with these qualities, each one, as it said here, that word I pulled out, that you're accomplished in this erotico, that you but I think the sense too I'm getting is that this is successful with it, that you are actually making an effort to develop these, and to a certain extent, one has developed these. And that's the thing with these spiritual qualities, the five indriyas. I chose bala is also there. There's the five powers or strengths, but there's also the exact same qualities are called indriyas. And so there's a lot more on the five indriyas. So I chose that. So pancha is five, and indriya is faculty. So you'll in the sutta, you'll just see five faculties. That's how they'll be called. But they're also called as five controlling faculties or spiritual faculties. You'll see that as what they're labeled. And here I just pulled sutta. There's a whole samyutta, both on the balas, on the strengths or powers, and there's a whole samyutta on the faculties, but I'll explain a little bit more. So this is the first one for the five faculties in that section. They talk about different kinds of faculties in the section, but there's a whole section in the Samyutta Nikaya, in the connected discourses of the Buddha. And this is, it's a very brief sutta, and I just took the essential part out. But there's not much more to it than this. As mendicants, there are these five faculties. Panchimani bhikkhave, indriyani. What five? Katamani pancha. So there's the word five there. What five? The faculty of faith, energy, mindfulness, immersion, and wisdom. So that's sadindriya, viryendriya, satindriya, samadindriya, panyindriya. These are the five faculties. Imani ko bhikkhave panchi indriyani. See the A disappears and becomes an I. As that the words when the words merge, and the indriyas. Not only does it use you'll see six indriyas, and that has to do with the six sense faculties. But here we're talking a mental faculty and then power. This literally belonging to Inda and Indra. Yeah. So the God, it's like that gives the idea of something super normal. If these are developed well, it's something. And also, I'm not sure. I think with the sense faculties, there's an idea is that this gives us capacity to navigate in the world. It is. I mean, if your eyesight's really good, you have more capacity, or your hearing is really good, you'll have more capacity than somebody who lacks that ability. So that I just wanted to go over these carefully because these are essential to understanding this, I think, the sutta. So we're going to flip back if I can get see if I can move my, here it is. I'm going to flip back to the sutta again. So then, so establishing ourselves in this, first when you're grounded or established in these five things, go on to develop six things further. So he says, at least to get established in these things. So this is kind of interesting. Firstly, you should recollect the realized one, the Tathagata. That blessed one is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. So this reflection, actually, it's interesting because the first of the five indriyas is sada, right? And so a lot of people will recite this to bring up the sada. But I think you already have to have some confidence in the Buddha to start with, right? Before this is going to be inspiring to you. And for me to reflect that the Lord Buddha was a human being like myself, and he went on the spiritual quest because he saw the suffering in the world. And I see the suffering in the world, and I could feel really dismayed and distressed. But if I just sit there and be dismayed and distressed, it's not going to help anything. So I need to actually develop myself to understand how to live in this world, what I should be doing in this world, and how to face the difficulties in the world. So the fact that somebody else said, "Oh my goodness, there's so much distress and conflict and all the things that he saw before he went forth into looking for the answer. How do we end suffering, at least for ourselves, but also offering a way to others. This is what he did. He offered a way to others. So we can reflect on these words, but this is what he's telling Mahānāma to do. And then when a noble disciple recollects the realized one, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. So if I'm starting to feel irritated and I start reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha and say, okay, this is if I see hate, greed, delusion in myself, and I'm reflecting on the triple gem, then it's easier for me to let go of these things. So that at that time, the mind is unswerving based on the realized one. So the Mahānāma had the advantage of actually knowing the Buddha, meeting the Buddha. And we have the teachings available to inspire us. A noble disciple whose mind is unswerving finds inspiration in the meaning and the teaching and finds joy connected with the teaching. When they're joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. When they're blissful, their mind becomes immersed in samadhi. So this is recommending this reflection on the Buddha as a meditation. And then the mind will become joyful. And let's see, there's pamoja. Pamoja is gladness and happiness. And I want you to notice this here, it says pamuditasa, but here is mudita within there. So these two words are related to each other, mudita and pamoja. It's this joy. Then there's piti and jayati it's born. Piti is born. And this is pasambati is the the calming down. So it's like this uplift, and then the mind is bright and uplifted. And so this is like we're getting the wirya, the energy from this reflection. And then the calm is starting to come. The body becomes calm, and then there's happiness, and the happiness is experienced. And when this is the chitta, when the mind is happy and joyful, then it's possible to enter samadhi. It becomes calm, collected, composed. So it's a good way to calm ourselves down if we're feeling distressed. We can reflect on the Buddha. This is called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the Buddha. So that sounds like stream entry, doesn't it? Right there. It's a Dhamma Sutta Samappanno, who've entered the stream of the Dhamma. So I think just by reciting these words isn't going to do it. That's why I was pointing out these 5 spiritual faculties or 5 powers. In combination with those, this reflection can bring us into samadhi, calming our minds down and help us to be able to see things clearly, which would be the panya, the wisdom. So, and this is also beautiful here, to be in balance among people who are unbalanced. So, if people around you are all upset and distressed and out of balance, and if you're a balanced presence, you may actually help others. It's not just like, oh, who cares? These people are all out of balance and I'm in balance. And, that would be conceit, right? But more what we would be a presence. And people recognize somebody who is balanced, and they may say, oh, this is a calming influence on me, and they would respect you. Not everybody, but many people would. And so, and live untroubled among people who are troubled. So I think this is the same kind of influence. If we're not being distressed and troubled, even though there's difficulty, we can use our calm presence, our balanced presence to deal with situations. So I think this is more that what it's talking about here. Furthermore, you should recollect the teaching. This is the Dhamma. So we're talking about Buddha Nusati. So you have this Anusarayasi. So this is Anusati. Remembers, recollects, bears in minds. And but it's related to Anusati. So we have Dhamma Anusati here and Dhammanusati. And the teaching is well explained by the Buddha, apparent in the present life, immediately effective, inviting inspection, relevant so that sensible people can know for themselves. So I forgot to mention too, you probably will hear in temples, people here, starting here, iti piso bhagava araham samma sambuddho vijja charana sampanno sugato lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati Satta Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. So you'll see various translations of that. And then we go to the Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachatam Titabo Winyuhiti. So could be reciting that in Pali or memorizing these verses in English. But if you know the Pali, you go to a temple and you'll be able to recite along by heart with others. When a noble disciple recollects the teaching, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. And it repeats as the same, and then their mind becomes joyful and calm, and then they enter into samadhi. This is called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced, lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the teaching. Furthermore, you should recollect the Sangha. The Sangha of the Buddha's disciples is practicing the way that's good, sincere, systematic, and proper. Excuse me. It consists of 4 pairs, 8 individuals. This is the Sangha of the Buddha's disciples that is worthy of offerings dedicated to the gods. This is interesting. Worthy of hospitality, worthy of religious donation, worthy of greetings with joined palms, and is the supreme field of merit for the world. So does everyone know what the 4 pairs and the 8 individuals are? No. The 4 pairs, that is the stages of awakening, starting with the people who are faith followers or Dhamma followers who are on the path to Sotapanna or stream entry. And then there's the once returner, the one on the path to becoming a once returner, and then the once returner, and then the on the path to Anagami, the non-returner, and the non-returner, and then the on the path to Arhat and the Arhat. So that's the 4 pairs, and then so it's those on the path to those stages of awakening, and those who have attained it. So I guess if you're a Sotapanna, then you're on the path to Satyagami, the once returner. so I don't know how, or you've attained Sotapanna, and then you're working towards a higher attainment. You're getting close. So I'm not sure how it lines up, but that's what's been explained to me what this means. So this is the awakened Sangha. And it could be lay or monastic Sangha who have had some attainment. So when a noble disciple recollects the Sangha, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. So we can be inspired by the Dhamma, the teaching, thinking about the qualities of the Dhamma, or thinking about the qualities of the Sangha, and how we have that potential. When a noble disciple recollects the Sangha, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. This is called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced, and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the Sangha. Furthermore, you should recollect your own ethical conduct, which is intact. impeccable, spotless, and unmarred, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, and leading to immersion. So a person who has complete faith, unwavering faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and who has kept their sila spotless, as this is saying, these are qualities of a sotapanna, of a someone who's entered the stream of the Dhamma, someone who's on the first stage of awakening. So he's just kind of setting Mahānāma in that direction. And I think he also knows Mahānāma's mind. So he's saying you should recollect for ourselves whether if our sila isn't pure, we should recollect what we are keeping pure, and also try to clean up what we're not. And but reflecting on, oh yes, there was a time in my life where I was killing ants, and now I'm restraining from harming any kind of living being, or even if I accidentally say an untruth, now I try to correct it as soon as possible. So we can reflect on this, and it brings us joy. Even the fact that we're working on the sila, I think, helps. Because we have remorse if we aren't keeping our the 5 precepts pure, is for a lay person. So for a lay person, not killing living beings, speaking truthfully, not engaging in any kind of sensual or sexual misconduct. As I mentioned, not stealing. I think I got them. But and refraining from intoxicants. So when a disciple recollects their ethical conduct, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. So this is another reflection we can have. Or even the fact, if like I did say an untruth, and I went to the person and I said, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't true. And then I can reflect back, oh, this is so important to me that I correct myself now. I'm making progress on the path. It can bring up joy. This is called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced, and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of teaching and developed a recollection of their ethical conduct. Furthermore, you should recollect your generosity. This is Chaganusati. So the other one would be Sila Nusati, and this is Chaganusati. You think, I am so fortunate, very fortunate, among people whose hearts full of the stain of stinginess. I live at home rid of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, loving to let go, committed to charity, loving to give and to share. So I remember when I first started coming to it was a Ayyā monastery, and I was seeing people so eager to help, so eager to offer things, just taking so much joy in it, and it became contagious. They were like competing even to do the dishes or something like that. There'd be a big, huge pile of dishes at a event, and people would they were they they were taking so much joy in to be able to help out, and to think back about that we have the opportunity even because of our lifestyle to be able to give, but to recollect times when we were generous. So it's not a conceit of, oh, I'm so good or something, but it's just delighting in this capacity, you know. So when a noble disciple recollects their own generosity, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. This is called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of teaching and developed the recollection of generosity. So he's saying developed that. So I think it's not something instantaneously that, you know, if we're reflecting on the triple gem or reflecting on our own sila or our own generosity, necessarily that will, you know, bring up these all the wholesome qualities of joy and calm and entering samadhi. But I think at least we are, if we're feeling distressed or feeling angry or greed is starting to overcome our minds when we're reflecting on this thing, at least we have something else more wholesome to occupy our thoughts with. Sometimes for me, there's thinking, and I go into like anxiety or go into something unwholesome. And I think, oh, I can use this thinking differently. There's the Vachi Sankara is the mental formation that's a verbal formation. So I can redirect the verbal formation into something wholesome. So this is what we can use these. And this last one, thinking about the devas, and I think maybe many Westerners might not be able to relate to this because it's not so familiar. In the time of the Buddha, there was some kind of understanding that these devas did exist, and you knew what the Buddha would be talking about if he was mentioning these different realms of existence. So this may not be so inspiring to Westerners, but it is here in the sutta. And some people are very inspired. I know that quite a few people would be inspired by this. So furthermore, you should recollect the deities, is how the Bhante Sujato translates devas. There are gods of the 4 great kings, the gods of the 33, the gods of Yama, the joyful gods, the gods who love to imagine, the gods who control what is imagined by others, the gods of the divinity host, and the gods even higher than these. So he's going through these different realms of existence. When those deities passed away from here, they were reborn there because of their faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. I too have the same kind of faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom. So if we do have those qualities, then we could be potentially reborn in a higher realm, but also to think that we're becoming more divine ourselves. And again, it's not for conceit, but it's just to that this purity of that we're developing in ourselves is and more in the realm of divinity than in the realm of being a demon or an animal or a corrupt human being. We're purifying our behavior, and it's likened to the gods. So so when a noble disciple recollects the faith, ethics, learning, generosity, and wisdom of both themselves and the deities, their mind is not full of greed, hate, and delusion. So if we take it in that context, So we're doing Chaga Nusati, but there's also wisdom included here. At that time, their mind is unswerving, based on the deities. A noble disciple whose mind is unswerving finds inspiration in the meaning and the teaching and finds joy connected with the teaching. When their joyful rapture springs up, when the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body becomes tranquil, they feel bliss. When they're blissful, the mind is immersed in samadhi. This is called a noble disciple who lives in balance among people who are unbalanced and lives untroubled among people who are troubled. They've entered the stream of the teaching and developed the recollection of the deities. And that's the end of this sutta. We have a little bit of time left. Does anyone have a question specific to this sutta? Is this making sense? I kind of was going through it quickly because wasn't sure how much time. We do have the other sutta that just follows it. So we can go to that one. And it's basically the same. So the Mahānāma heard that the Buddha was going to be departing soon. So he asked him the same question. I said, how should we live? Basically, I think I liked, he says, which we live in various ways. Our life is in various ways. How should we live? It makes more sense to me. I think that may be how Ajahn Tanisaro translated it. So it has the same 5 qualities. And this is something else I wanted to point out. So one who is faithful succeeds, not one who is faithless. So sometimes maybe our sadha is getting kind of dim or not so strong, and we might start recollecting why we went onto the spiritual path to begin with, what inspired us, and we can do things to bring up that sada, to bring up the energy that way. And sada is balanced out by wisdom, by the panya. These two balance each other. So we can have a kind of a gullible faith, or just like, because we met somebody who inspired us, who's charismatic and all this kind of stuff. But if it's not balanced out by wisdom or discernment or, our understanding, then this is how the spiritual, why they're called controlling faculties, is because they balance the mind. They keep the mind in balance. So the sada can bring up energy and interest. Why were we interested in the Buddha's teaching to begin with? So we can bring up this inspiration and aspiration, and then balance it with understanding. So understanding, like if I read something and I'm getting more out of the sutta than I had before, then I do feel more inspired. It brings up the inspiration. So these two strengthen one another, the sada and the Panya, strengthen one another. And then the energetic succeed, not lazy. And what occurred to me too when I was looking at this, because he's giving the opposites, these controlling faculties also counter the opposites of faith and no faith, and being energetic and lazy. And then if I see myself starting to feel like being lazy about things, then I say, how can I bring out energy? I see that I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be lazy about this. How do I bring up the energy? And then mindful succeed, not unmindful. This is also translated as forgetful, muddle-minded. So we might find ourselves being a little muddle-minded or unmindful and forgetful, and oh, I need to bring up that mindfulness again. How do I, just start applying my awareness more sharply? And in the five spiritual faculties, there's these two pairs on the opposite sides that balance each other, and mindfulness strengthens all of them. Mindfulness should be within the other faculties. And then those with immersion succeed, not without immersion. And so you're not scattered, distracted, not composed. So you see yourself falling into that, being distracted, unmindful. All of this, if this is how the mindfulness is going to help us aware, oh, I'm getting distracted. How do I get back on track? How do I get more composed? How do I get more calm? Also, a lot of times when we're distracted, it's because we're agitated. And then the Panyawa, the Panyawa, there's somebody I know, Venerable Panyawati, possessing wisdom, someone who possesses wisdom. So how do I increase my understanding? The mindfulness helps. This mindfulness, bringing awareness to things and saying, oh, I see, I am distracted, or I do see, I am, and then, so this is, oh, I can see cause and effect here. I'm bringing understanding in my own daily life to what's going on. You can develop wisdom as well as book learning or sutta study or listening to teachings. So then he says, when you're grounded in these five things, go on to develop six things further. So it is the same with the accomplished recollecting the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So what was different about this one, like it's just pretty much the same. When a noble disciple's mind is unswerving, finds inspiration in the meaning and teaching, and finds joy connected with the teaching. When they're joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. When they're blissful, the mind is immersed in samadhi. You should develop this recollection of the Buddha while walking, standing, sitting, lying down, and while working, and while at home with your children. So I was like kind of wondering about that. If I'm thinking, Itipiso Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddha, am I going to be in the present moment with what I'm doing? So recollecting the Buddha while walking, standing, and sitting, if I'm doing that as a form of meditation and lying down. But it says while working at home and with your children. So I'm not sure how that fits in, but I've been reflecting on that. But I think from time to time, if we are feeling scattered, we might just pause and recollect the Buddha, Dhamma, or Sangha. And it may help us become more collected. This is my best guess on that. I don't know if anyone else has an idea about that. If you're at work, taking a moment to recollect the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So yeah, here it is. Furthermore, you should recollect it's the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. He's just ellipsed. Your own generosity, the deities. So it's basically the same, except for that one part about you should develop this recollection of the Buddha while walking, standing, sitting, lying down, while working, and while at home with your children. This is the only thing that's really different about the sutta. So we can yeah, I remember when I was a layperson, I was driving and I started chanting while I was driving, and it was not good. I ended up going on the wrong direction. I lost track of where I was going. And I ended up, like I turned around. I had to turn around and retract my, uh, where I had gone to get back to where I needed to go. So I think it may be just pausing from time to time and reflecting on the triple gem. That's what I would recommend. But I think you can, with walking meditation or standing or sitting or lying down, you could use this as a form of meditation, the reflection on the triple gem, or bringing up that's what's called Chaganusati, is that your own wholesome qualities, generosity, and the sila. I think sila is also included in that. But I think there's so to bring up that joy at the beginning of the meditation. You don't have to do it through the entire sitting, but if you were, start your meditation reflecting on your own sila. And some people will recite the precepts before they meditate. They'll do, you do a puja and a recollection of the triple gem, and then recite the 5 precepts, and then meditate. And by the time you've done that, the mind is like settled. And then if you're maybe even reflecting a little bit on one of those qualities, on the triple gem or your own generosity or something, then you're bringing up joy in your heart. And then the meditation, you can settle into, the breath or what other object that you may be using as a something to collect your mind, to bring mindfulness to. So that may be enough unless there's more questions. Let's see if I can get out of screen sharing. So is there any questions about what we just went through? Anything further? Yes, Adrian?
Thank you, Ayyā. I was just wondering how grounded in the 5 faculties is grounded before before you kind of have these recollections, because obviously it says in the sutta that one is grounded in these 5 faculties and then they take on these 6 recollections.
Yeah, I think we at least have to be, it needs to be at least enough sada or faith in what you're, the Buddhist teaching, that you're motivated to to take on the practice. And but I think these things are developed over time, and as you were seeing, those recollections help develop these other qualities as well. So, but I think to at least get started on them, and yeah, I think probably people that have been practicing for a while, enough that they know what mindfulness is, and they've been applying it in their lives for, that they can see, oh, I am unmindful now. Oh, I can bring myself back to mindfulness. Oh, so it's, yeah, but I think if somebody right off the bat starts reflecting on the triple gem and expecting that the mind is going to become joyful and into the body becoming calm and then entering into jhana or something like that, I think that would be premature. So yeah, I think for the individual, you could be um still working with them, and maybe it's not going to be the same effect. But if you're working on, if you've because there are people that are what it's called faith followers, and they get involved in the or they're raised Buddhist, uh or the quality of faith is something that's more alive in them than the quality of um pursuing the Dhamma, the teachings, the wisdom teachings. And some people enter the stream just with that. But they have to have the some amount of understanding. They have to have the understanding of the Four Noble Truths in order to actually enter the stream. So they have to at least have some understanding of dukkha and the cause of dukkha and the motivation to be on the path and develop the other path factors. So yeah, I don't think it can preclude doing the practice that, oh, I'm not, I haven't mastered the five spiritual faculties, or I have five strengths. But I think we can't neglect them at the same time. We have to work with those five faculties or strengths. So I hope that answers the question. I think for an individual, it probably would vary too, because their sadhana, their faith may inspire them to start working on these factors. So it could be inverse. But this teaching to Mahānāma was, he may have been somebody who a very strong faith, and he said, you need to work on these first and then apply yourself to these. Something like that. But he apparently he had good sila. He had a good ethical conduct, and he was already generous, because he was, the way the teaching is presented is that to reflect on this pre-existing quality that he had of generosity and ethical conduct. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. So it's now 9 o'clock, and I'm gonna close the YouTube, and if you have further questions, you can stay on.